What's up, you guys? Welcome to Fightful. It's Sean Ross Sapp. It's June 19th, 2024. As you guys know, Jimmy Van doesn't like to work. He just never shows up here. And most weeks, I have the What Do You Guys Want to Talk About podcast where I answer questions for you guys as a bit of a preview for our FightfulSelect.com service where I do a Q&A every week. Grapsody does one every other week. And then I've got the Ask SRS in our Select exclusive Discord. There was a question the other day about wrestling during the pandemic. And I said, you know what? A lot of that stuff is sort of pushed out of my mind. So there's a guy I feel like I would need to have help me cover that. And it's a guy who fantasizes about the pandemic every day. He romanticizes
did you just bait me into coming on to do this? Is that what this is?
No, but it did pop it in my head. You know what? Maybe we do a Q&A together.
That's
Jon
fair.
Alba, who does the Extreme Life of Matt Hardy, in addition to a number of other things, has worked with Triller, just all over the place. But we'd love to have you here, John, and we're going to be answering your guys' super chats and humper chats. Get those in here at youtube.com/Fightful or humperchats.com. If you don't send any, it will be the quickest payday of Jon Alba's career, except for that one time that he doesn't like to talk about anymore, of which I hope footage no longer exists. But hey, yeah.
Yeah.
How you doing, John?
Thanks for having me, man. I'm excited here. You know, over at wrestlingaccordingtoalba.com, my Patreon, we do Ask Alba every week. So I figured here's another thing that Sean's trying to legitimize himself through by, taking my gimmick. So it's cool. It's great. Yeah, no.
Yes.
Thrilled to be here.
Can confirm Jon Alba was the first person to ever do Q&As.
No one's ever done a Q&A. No one has ever done a Q&A ever.
It never happened.
No,
ever.
But I have alliteration and you don't, so.
Well, I'll tell you what else I have that you don't. NordVPN.com/Fightful. There is no product that we have promoted more on Fightful that I use while I'm awake than NordVPN.com/Fightful. You guys have probably seen me anchored to my desk an awful lot for quite a while, and I've always got NordVPN on all my devices. That's because that's what NordVPN.com/Fightful allows. You get the fastest VPN in the world on all your devices, on all your operating systems. It is so beneficial to have that versatility. Here at home, I put it on my router just in case, and I put it on my phone, laptop, desktop, PC, and smart TV. That allows you to get all the benefits. The online threat protection, the ability to change your virtual location with just one click, the ability to use that NordPass password manager, the file encryption tool, all that good stuff on everything. Also, you can subscribe to all those overseas services I'm telling you all about, all with 24/7 tech support and a 30-day money-back guarantee on top of an already amazing deal. Protect yourself on all your devices with NordVPN.com/Fightful.
Well, I have an Emmy and you don't, so let's do this.
That's debatable. That's debatable. I feel like I know so many people with Emmys that I feel like I have one now. Like I know you, I know Chris.
So by proxy,
my friend Catherine Shepard has like 6 or 7 of them.
See.
Yeah. So I mean, like, I'm just saying. Okay. So, my God, Rex Fortune sends a very generous super chat and says, I got my sister and brother-in-law into AEW. We're watching Dynamite tonight, having a party for Forbidden Door. Well, that's going to be a long-ass party, my friend. That much I assure you. That being said, how does it feel as a Bengals fan to get clapped by the Browns every year? Well, I mean, listen, it would feel a lot worse if the Browns didn't get clapped by their very own existence every year. The best quarterback you guys have had this millennium is the guy you have now, and that's incredibly sad. In order to get this very, very troubled quarterback, they had to make a trade and do the first ever fully guaranteed deal for a quarterback so bad that literally no other team in the NFL would do it.
Well,
They
played better when he wasn't playing.
Yes, they competed with themselves, Jon Alba. There was nobody else trying to get Deshaun Watson. The Browns are like, let's give you all this stuff, Houston. Let's just give you that. And by the way, we're going to give this guy a fully guaranteed contract because even with all the shit he's in, it's still going to take all that to get him to come to Cleveland. There you go. I am not convinced that Deshaun Watson is good anymore. There has been very little that I have seen, and I usually keep this to Common Bingles W on our YouTube for a cheap plug there. Have you seen any evidence that Deshaun Watson is still good?
Can I confess something? Sure. I used to be a Heisman voter.
Okay.
And when Lamar won, what was that, 2016, I think it was?
Mm-hmm.
I was one of the few people that voted for Deshaun over Lamar.
Things were a little different then. Things were a little different then.
A little different.
The Browns did win 5 games that he started. I'll give him that. But you know what? Listen, I think that he is going to throw about, 30 picks this year. I think we're looking at 30 picks
30.
For Deshaun Watson. Yeah, 30. 30.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, slightly more than his career high of 12. I think it's going to be 30. You know what? I'm willing to say 60. He's going to throw 60 picks this year. That's what's going to happen.
Okay.
Matthew Hook says, any Owen thoughts? Surprise entrance expected. This is Matthew Hooks of Hooked in Voiceovers. I know that they wanted to make this a tournament that was either incredibly sentimental in the participants or somebody that you could plausibly believe would win the whole thing. I think Bryan Danielson's winning it.
Yeah, I'll tell you, on the women's side, I'm actually really interested with the story that they've been telling with Mariah and Tony and them threading that into the tournament. And some people will say, well, that kind of, that might make the finish a little more predictable. But I think sometimes if that is the route they go and Mariah does end up winning this thing, there's going to be added anticipation to how they blow that story off. So I'm kind of into that idea. I think that's great. And on the men's side, I tend to agree with you. I think Bryan Danielson's probably the guy.
At what point does Triple H release a CCTV footage of the backstage Wyatt attack? Do you watch AEW? I do watch AEW. Listen, I think that when he airs the footage, it will just be Uncle Howdy putting people in front face locks before Chris Hero comes and breaks it up. I think that's ultimately what the footage will be, Jon Alba.
And then someone just draws blood on the back behind them. That's how it
just does it.
Goes down.
Just does that.
I was referenced on an episode of AEW. I'm not sure if you've seen
really
that. In Matt Hardy's episode, RJ says, "Now I know that you do a podcast with Idris Elba," which is. So that's a good one. No, it's funny, Sean, talking about the Wyatt Sicks stuff. I really thought it was just fantastic. And my one thing that I just thought maybe was a little touch too much was the idea that they tried to convince you that these people were murdered. And
maybe
and
TBD.
And TBD, right? No doubt. Danny Cage, a mutual colleague of ours, even proposed that should be like a dream that the audience had, that like showing into the future what the Wyatt Sicks is capable of or could do. Kind of like how Doctor Strange saw all the different outcomes for what would happen, except for the one where Tony Stark, spoiler alert, snaps everything away. So maybe there's some hint to that, but it really was well done. And I hope people understand the intricacy of that one tracking shot, that 5-minute live shot.
Very good.
All the little things that had to happen sequentially. And I was breaking it down yesterday, and I mentioned this to my patrons, actually. If you watch the fan footage, because there's a lot of fan footage of it, there's an individual on the staff who is behind the camera. I don't know if you noticed this, but he's flashing a phone back and forth to himself and to the talent. I would presume he had a timer on that, and he was showing them exactly how much time they had to hit every single beat along the live shot. I thought that was a really important but small detail that made this all come together, and just the magic of live television in front of your eyes,
Yeah, if you're ever at AEW, they have a physical clock.
They do.
By their hard camera
but
area.
You don't have that when you're doing a segment that goes from backstage to the front of the stage, so you had to have some sort of cue.
which led to the miscue a few weeks ago at the end of Raw, where if you use NordVPN.com/Fightful and watched on TNT Sports, you saw the end where Liv kissed Dominic, but otherwise you missed it. Crazy 101 says, where do you see Megan Bayne, WWE or AEW? Well, Fightful Select had reported she has been in conversations with AEW again. I haven't heard of WWE contact, but I would imagine that she ends up there. Any thoughts?
She should go somewhere because she's really talented, and more than anything, she just has such a fantastic presence about her that I think is a TV-ready presence wherever she goes.
This week, we saw Seth's return. Do we see Rhea and Roman right after Money in the Bank to build to SummerSlam? I believe we'll see Rhea on TV before SummerSlam. I don't know if we see her wrestle before SummerSlam, but it's hard for me to believe that Rhea and Roman will be off leading up to SummerSlam. And when people talked about declining viewership numbers, I was like, well, WWE didn't have Rollins or Becky or Roman or Rock or even Cena for him popping up, or Charlotte. They're missing a lot of heavy hitters, but I would imagine that we see them ahead of that.
Yeah, I think not to have Rhea appear on TV at that time would be a mistake because timeline-wise, that would seem to line up with when she'd be coming back or so, right? I think it'd be about 2.5, 3 months at that juncture, so that would seem to make a lot of sense. And Roman, let's see what the story they have planned for Roman is. I'd have to think he has a match at SummerSlam, but if not, I assume he's back at SummerSlam. It's one of the two of those, I'd have to think. So I guess we'll see shortly.
Joker says, going to Dynamite in Buffalo. Any rumors for the go-home show next week? Speaking of, will my boy Daniel Garcia get that next level push this year? John?
Well, good thing I turned you on to him.
Why are you turning me on? Why are you so proud that you turned me on, John?
I mean, I think Daniel Garcia would be flattered that you were turned on to him, truthfully. I mean, haven't you seen him? That dude's a walking, talking thirst trap. But
Dancing
anyway.
Thirst trap, yeah.
He is. And dancing. Do I think he'll get that next level push? That seems to be the big question with Garcia all the time, right? Like, there's been at least 3 instances where conceivably they could have taken Daniel Garcia to that next level, and they didn't, right? It happened with Jericho. It happened a couple months ago where you could have seen him maybe winning the TNT title, and he didn't. So here's a contract that's coming up later this fall, right? What is his standing point in AEW? Where does he fit in? Because he gets great reactions. We're starting to see him become a little more of his own. I love that vignette they did for him a few weeks ago where they talked about his car accident up in Buffalo and all that. We'll see if he gets to that next level, but my gut says, Sean, that it's going to be put up or shut up time when it comes to a guy like him.
Van Twinblade says, with the murders on live TV, what's your favorite slasher? John, you want to lead with that one?
I'm not a slasher flick guy.
My favorite horror movie is Hush. I think it's the best that I've ever seen.
I think my favorite horror is probably 2000 WCW.
I'm about to watch episode 3 after this, actually. I'm very excited about that. As a guy that unfortunately had to deal with Vince Russo when I worked with him, and now unfortunately has to deal with Vince Russo being obsessed with me, I look forward to seeing that. John Voker says, any updates for Becky, Natalya, Dijak? None of them have signed new deals as of yet.
Dijak's on speed. He is?
Haven't we all been at a time? Just Mask says, was Rollins one of the Wyatt Sicks victims? No, he wasn't. I was told in the report that we ran on FightfulSelect.com that there was a reason why a lot of people got out of the venue early on in that, and that this is going to feel very widespread, and it's going to have domino effects all across the roster. I'm 2 hours from Nashville. Blood and guts, anyone? I'm thinking about making the 3.5-hour trip down there for that. I mean, I love that that's there. Do you think it'll be Ricochet versus Will at All In? I don't, John. But what do you see for that? Or what do you see for either one of those guys at All In? Ricochet is almost certainly headed to AEW.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly think he's heading to AEW, and that's a match you absolutely could do at All In. My gut says it's actually a match they do at All Out a couple weeks later. I think you're going to end up seeing probably Will versus So Ospreay's got to have a big match at All In, and I think if you're not going to do Ricochet, probably a guy like MJF makes the most sense to me, and that would add a lot of equity in MJF chasing the international championship as well. To see a guy at his level wanting to target Will Ospreay, I think we're probably getting to something like that. If Ricochet's there, maybe him and Pac, some sort of showcase match or something of that nature that just puts him on a big pedestal. I assume he can be in at that point, right? Like he'll be free at that point. So
Yes.
So I'd assume he's on the card then.
His deal's up next month. And I mean, with MJF, because what he does on the microphone isn't for everybody, a lot of people forget that he is incredible in the ring. The match with Omega, Adam Cole, the Bryan Danielson match, the four-way that a lot of people were writing off at last year's Double or Nothing was incredible. I think that he wants to have a match of the year. I think that's a goal for Maxwell Jacob Friedman at some point. What do you think main events it? At this point, I think it is whoever the world champion is versus Bryan Danielson. And I don't hate the idea of it being Swerve. But, man, it is kind of wild that the Seattle show is the next month. But maybe it's a twofer after that. And you got them running it back in Seattle after that.
Certainly could with stakes.
Yeah, or just title belts as well instead of actual steaks. I don't know. Maybe Omaha Steaks could sponsor.
I do I do cook a lot of steaks.
You do.
It's like my personality.
I honestly, listen, I've had it. I eat well done steak, and that's how I like it.
What?
I love well done steak.
This explains so much about you. The amount of defending I've done for you in the public forum, even in the private forum. The amount of pro wrestlers who think you're a snake that I've gone to bat for you for.
If I ate snake, I would make sure it was well done as well.
Sure
I watch a lot of Naked and Afraid, and listen, they don't half cook their stuff. That's for sure.
Are you 5?
Chris says, what do you think of Kevin Kelly wanting to sue AEW and his appearance on Bischoff's? Listen, Ian Riccaboni is a wonderful guy. I can't speak to their disagreements, but Kevin Kelly's lawsuit, I can't imagine it will do much of anything.
Yeah, I don't foresee that going anywhere.
Just Ricardo says, love for Jonathan and Alba and all you in the chat. Well, thank you so much. Thank you so much.
My love for Jonathan's gone down a little bit here, but
any chance for Joe Hendry on Raw or SmackDown after his vignette with HBK when he said he could appear on any show? I don't think so. I think it would be limited to NXT. That seems to be the scope of which they want to do this TNA thing. But John, how about you? Do you think that's possible?
I don't know if it's possible, but I'll tell you this: after seeing his reaction and reception, he's tailor-made for NXT, isn't he?
Yes, he is. He sure is.
Like bread and butter. It's funny. Hardy and I taped this week's podcast this morning, and we talked a lot about Joe Hendry because he's very high on Joe right now, as a lot of people are. And he said that he felt a lot of parallels between when Broken Matt was starting to catch on and what Joe Hendry is going through right now, where you're capturing a lot of social media attention. And I said, one of the true litmus tests to that is when the Broken character was starting to really catch on, you had people doing delete at non-TNA events. They were doing it at WWE shows. They were doing it at Ring of Honor shows, indie shows. And when Joe Hendry came out at the NXT show and the crowd knew immediately his shtick, that tells you that it's resonating on a much larger scale.
And I mean, there were rumors that TNA could end up taping semi-live or at least more frequently at perhaps Full Sail. Boy, that would help that partnership an awful lot, I feel like, where you have people in. And I sincerely think that a TNA versus NXT show would fill up an arena. I think they would do that. And I don't think TNA itself can fill up an arena. I don't know if NXT necessarily can on a regular basis, but I think the novelty of that certainly could, John.
I mean, listen, NXT has done arena shows and done good business in them, so there's no reason to suggest that if you had a few people with some star power, throw the Hardys on there, throw Moose on there, throw Nick Nemeth on there, there's no reason to suggest that they couldn't.
Hey, gents, any idea what Bruce Prichard does in his role for WWE at this point? Hearing audacious Austin Theory on air made me wonder. he does pretty well what he was doing all along. He's involved in the creative process and production and handles a lot of that stuff. And he has still been an important part of the WWE process. And I mean, is one of the final-ish connections to Vince McMahon, although I do wonder what his allegiance really was to Vince once Vince is gone, because we have seen him go for years without being in WWE in the past as well. So do I think that he could have served in the manner in which Ronda Rousey claimed he did? Yeah, for sure. But I don't think there's much value in doing that now. Rock Hard Joe Wood says, as a wrestling according to Alba and Fightful subscriber, who's got the better hair? John, by a mile. Mine's a wreck. Like I don't have good hair.
Well, you're an AEW show because you cut your hair on their programming. That's what I've heard on Reddit. So I've seen
Reddit. That. Reddit is such a wonderful source of accurate news. I definitely didn't get a message from one of our site managers that had a list of Reddit threads and said, hey, you might want to clear up some misinformation here. I definitely didn't go to those and then just delete my entire account because there was no point. Definitely didn't happen. Heard any update on Mark Davis and Bandito? Not on Bandito, but Kyle Fletcher said that Mark Davis is a while off. They'll have an update when they can, but he won't speak on what's going on.
That's a shame. Good team.
Very good team. K775 says, guessing the SummerSlam card so far is Gunther Priest, Nia Bailey, Punk Drew, DIY, Waller, Ciampa. What other matches do you think are added? Do you think those are locked in? Because I don't necessarily think those are locked in.
I don't know if I'd say locked in. I do think Nia versus Bailey is probably the route. Mm-hmm. I do think Punk versus Drew is probably the route, assuming that Punk is cleared. The other two, not certain on. Gunther, we know, unless something changes, will be in that position. Whether Priest will be the champion at that time or not, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, what other matches do I think is added? They could certainly go the route of Cody versus Orton, which I think is certainly plausible for that. What else comes to your mind?
I think Cody and Orton, I mean, last year they did 8 or 9 matches. It was like 8 matches plus the Money in the Bank cash in. I think it could go Rollins Priest or Rollins Gunther, and then Priest is involved with whatever this Judgment Day implosion is.
I agree.
Rhea, if she makes her way back, Rhea's got it. I mean, they're giving title shots. No disrespect to Piper Niven, Alba, and Isla, AJ, or Gable, but they're giving people title shots off of losses anyway. Rollins just showed up and got one, so I could see Rhea and Liv there. Cody and Orton is the one that I think makes an awful lot of sense. Logan Paul will almost certainly be defending the title there because of his connections.
Probably LA Knight.
Yeah, probably LA Knight. That one would make an awful lot of sense if they went that route. And then I think that the DIY Waller Ciampa match probably happens on SmackDown at some point. That's what I think, because they have really scaled back a lot of these matches to where they want to put big matches on TV as well. That's what I wish AEW would do a little bit more of. Less 13, 14 match cards. Give me an 8 match card and then sprinkle those other 6 on TV.
This week's Dynamite's a little more like that in terms of some of the big matches that they have. Yeah. I'm really excited for Claudio and Pac. I think that's going to be a fantastic TV match.
Mm-hmm. Love that too. We got Aerial Assassin saying Seth returned faster than I expected. The WWE asked him to be back sooner. His recovery must have went really well. I don't think at this stage WWE would risk, after having signed him to a new contract, him having worked for months on an injured knee and then doing 2 WrestleMania matches on that, would say, hey, rush back. I don't think they would have done that, personally.
I think he's all right.
Does Drew beat up Punk in Chicago on Friday? I think he's got to get him back.
Dude. All right, so I've been very conflicted on this Punk and Drew stuff.
Sure.
Because while what they did at the pay-per-view I thought was executed very well, mm-hmm. I don't know if that is the route that I personally would have gone. I've pitched kind of 2 ways with this. Number one, like if you wanted to have it play out in a similar way to how it did, Drew's character, right, is that he's chronically online. He's basically constantly scrolling Twitter. That's his character. And he's a smart heel. And so I think it could have been really fun if they leaned into the fact that people on social media were like, Punk's in Scotland, he's here. And all night long, we see Drew freaking paranoid that Punk is going to show up, and he's doing everything he can to make sure that Punk does not show up and screw him. And one of the constant motifs of Drew's character is that he takes the eye off the ball, right? Because he gets so distracted with something else. And then he would have never seen coming that Punk would have been the referee, and that would have been his undoing. Or you could have gone the route where this was the time that McIntyre actually got one back on Punk.
Yeah.
And I think that would have been an even more interesting story beat. But do I think that this week is when he lays him out? I think he has to. He has to. I don't know. And it would have been a little more interesting. I don't blame anyone because it would have gone out either way. But had we not known that he re-signed publicly, the quitting angle could have been a lot more interesting.
Can you make meatloaf?
Well, as a matter of fact,
Oh,
you mentioned that. I actually, Sean, I invented a dish called Asian meatloaf.
And you're going to tell me it was wheat loaf.
Not wheat loaf, no. And it is made up of ingredients that you would find in like dumplings. So it's like chicken, pork, beef, and it was freaking fantastic. And
Jon Alba knows all about dumpling.
That's right. And you use some dumpling sauce on the side, and it tastes like you're eating dumplings. It was amazing. Okay. So yeah, I can do meatloaf.
Eat your steaks however you want. Thank you, Fuzzy Wuzzy.
I mean, you can. It just doesn't mean you're right.
Do you have an update on Camille in AEW awaiting debut? What do you see for the future of Obafemi? Great things. I think that he gets it. And I think that when you have a guy like Braun Breaker out there doing the incredible physical things that he does, Oba will pick up some things of his own that only he is capable of, and he'll stand out.
Yeah, I mean, Big E said he sees him as a world champion in a very short time, so it's a pretty big endorsement there.
Undertaker putting over Ludwig Kaiser as a guy he seems as a future top guy as well.
I mean, you never know. Guys like that can break out. He's a very talented guy.
Yes, he is. He and Van Vliet mentioned like he should grow like an evil mustache, and I'm like, yeah, him with like the twirly mustache.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that would be great. What's going on with Danhausen? I wish I knew. I know that he wants to be used, but he's out there wrestling the independent circuit right now. Drew's a babyface because he's 100% right. He is. He is justified in everything that he's done so far. And we got Crazy 101 saying Ricky Starks update, women's blood and guts would be fire. It's been discussed, women's blood and guts. Ricky Starks update, not yet, but I've heard there have been some productive conversations. I don't want that to be aggregated because I'm working to verify that. So if you aggregate this, you're a dipshit. So
that's the quote, by the way, guys.
Yes, that is it. Tony says, what do you think is the best heel versus heel storyline when both are bad? The story ends with them both still not liking each other and still heels for a while. You know, none pop up like right into my head, but I really liked, especially the initial years of AEW, where it was a lot of choose your own adventure based on the month. And people would go, who's the heel? Well, guess what? Whoever you decide you don't like that month is the heel, because you got two very over people. Like you can't be that linear, but any thoughts on that one?
Heel versus heel.
Yeah,
man, that's tough. That's tough. I mean, back in the Attitude Era, when, I think one of the strongest suits of WWE back in the Attitude Era was that there were 6 to 7 guys who at any conceivable moment could have been world champion.
Yeah.
So I always use the Armageddon 2000 Hell in a Cell as an example, where you had the 6 guys. Rikishi was probably the outlier there. Maybe it should have been Kane, you could argue. But any 6 of them could have been champions, and like more than half of them were heels, and they would constantly get into it with each other. So I don't know specifically if there's like 2 guys, but I look back at that time and I'm like, man, it was just this rotation of credible heels competing with each other to be the top guy. You're muted. Unless I'm alone. I might be alone here.
I was muted. No, I don't think CM Punk will win another world title in WWE. I think at this point you have to have serious concerns about his injury status and how often he gets injured. Do you think
Wouldn't it be
WWE?
wild? Can I just pitch this real quick? Wouldn't
No,
it be
go ahead.
wild if Drew's way of getting it back on Punk is like if Punk does win the world title and Drew destroys him and there's a cash in, and that's his way of getting it back on him?
I liked Punk's method of saying, I don't want him to ever have anything good, even for a few moments.
Yeah.
So, will the Wyatts be on both brands going forward? They are unassigned internally as of now. Do you think WWE lost an opportunity to write Ricochet off doing the Wyatt Sicks debut? I don't mind how they did it, John, because they wanted to put over Braun Breaker. If they wanted to murder somebody on TV, it would have made sense to make it Ricochet.
Yeah, but the fact that they targeted so many people, Ricochet would have gotten lost in that in all likelihood.
Sure. Doc ABJ says, tinfoil hat question. If Ricochet declares he's only doing per appearance indie shows, what are the percentage chances TK hires him if he's free for Ospreay at Wembley? I don't think that's the plan. Tony Khan is going to hire Ricochet if Ricochet is available. That's going to happen. Full stop. It's going to happen.
Yeah,
we got
100%.
We got a Bobby White block here. Bobby White says, is it better to send stuff here, super chats or humper chats? It's actually better to send it on humperchats.com, which I see you sent several that we're going to get to consecutively. Humper chats allows us to keep a little bit more of the percentage. YouTube takes like 30%. Like it's brutal. And then the taxes on top of that. Do you think Camille shows for the Owen or something else? I would actually like to see both Camille and Megan Bain as like muscle that is kept apart until they have that big face off. And then you go, ooh, look at that.
You know who Camille would be great paired with? She'd be great with Britt Baker, a returning Britt Baker.
I agree.
I think she'd be a great spot for that. Or wouldn't hate one of them with Deonna Purrazzo either.
Yeah. We've got Bobby White saying, really wanting to see more of House of Black in their three or all three in their own singles runs. Don't see how Malachi Black goes to WWE with Uncle Howdy in the mix. But this last week, Malachi looked awesome. And if Matthews is selling, give him an Oscar. Well, Fightful Select just reported that was a planned segment. How are you feeling about the House of Black?
I mean, I agree with the sentiment that there's probably a lot more that could be explored with them individually. And we know they don't win a whole lot of matches these days. I don't see why Malachi Black couldn't go back to WWE because of the Wyatt Sicks stuff. I mean,
yeah,
it doesn't. I don't think they're directly the same thing by any stretch. One is just kind of a dark, brooding character, and the other is out of a horror movie. So I don't necessarily think that they're exactly the same thing.
Bobby White also says today's card looks great. However, I think the Acclaim need a break or character change or something. I'd rather have grizzled young vets who Fightful Select reported have been in talks with AEW for a contract. Motor City Machine Guns, who we have not heard are signed as of yet, or another tag team in there instead. What are your thoughts on the Acclaimed, and when will we see them get those graphics? Grizzled young vets, it's not a slam dunk they'll be in there. I have not heard anything new about Motor City Machine Guns, but the Acclaimed, I do think, need a refresher. I think they need new ring gear, colors. It needs new everything. It needs new everything. Badly.
Think about it this way. I think the way you judge a character is how much do they evolve, how much do they change. When the Acclaimed got hot in the summer of 2022, are they any different now than they were then? I wouldn't say so. I'd say they're exactly the same character and presentation. So I think that they are definitely due for something new.
Yeah, I think that 6-man title run didn't do great things for them.
Agreed.
Didn't do great things for them. Bobby White also says, why do you think stars like Wardlow, Starks are not on TV? Do you think it has to do with the new TV deal once it's solidified? If there is Collision 3 hours, Dynamite 3 hours, we'll have them on a brand split. And I'll roll that into Dante saying no Britt, Abaddon, Jamie, Ricky, Athena, Jamie, Sammy, while I have to sit through these terrible learning tree segments, making me want to skip the weekly shows and watch the pay-per-views. So I'll address all that right off the top and get John's thoughts. They are also missing Omega, Adam Cole, Hangman. It's not easy there. But I don't think they're doing a brand split. I don't think they're going to do that. There's just going to be some talent that doesn't appear on Collision. But if they didn't do a solid brand split with CM Punk, John, I don't think they're going to do one now.
Agreed. I don't see that happening.
I also don't think that it's going to that their absences have anything to do with the TV deals. I think there will be I think there will be 1 2-hour block and 1 3-hour block once the deal is solidified. Ideally, that 3-hour block would be on a Thursday now that the NBA isn't in the way, John.
Yeah, that's an interesting thought. I definitely think Dynamite is going to be a 3-hour show. Whether it's branded as a 3-hour Dynamite or the third hour is branded as something different, I don't know.
They're there filming anyway, so.
Right. So I definitely think that is going to be a third hour that is going to be consistent every single week. I think it has been workshopped for that very reason. Collision will be 2 hours. I fully believe that should they stay with Warner Brothers Discovery, they will have a 5-hour TV deal.
Sure.
And I believe, I think one of the most important parts of that deal that Tony Khan probably wants is multi-platform real-time streaming. So much like if you were to tune into a March Madness game on TNT, it's also streaming on Max. I think that's exactly what they want for AEW television, not just pay-per-views, but AEW television as well, where if you wanted to watch Dynamite on TBS, you could also watch it simultaneously on Max. Which, with how TV's changing and how OTT is changing, it seems like a slam dunk for both parties. I think there's just probably some ever-evolving questions of, okay, how does that affect Bryan Danielson showing up on my screen? Why does that affect how does that affect ad rate? How is that factored in when you're selling something that's not just for TV? Your Nielsen report might show lower numbers because people are simultaneously streaming it on Max. How are we delivering those viewership numbers to advertisers? I think there's a lot of those factors at play.
We're going to have an update on the WBD AEW stuff on FightfulSelect.com. Any chance of Alex Windsor signing with AEW? Yeah, there's a good chance of her signing with AEW. She's made a very good impression. What's next for Omega? Will Omega 3 or Okada Omega? Well, recovering from
Okada once he's healthy, right?
It will be Okada. And right now it's recovering from diverticulitis surgery. Bobby White says, what do you think is the holdup for AEW with Camille? She's there. It's just sometimes EJ Nduka hasn't debuted. He's been under contract for over a year.
I didn't even realize that. Wow.
Yeah. Okay. AEW has to waste into the millions just parking people a year. That's my big complaint about their business model is I am fine if somebody has 3 or 4 months off, like Hangman, or if Miro needs a few months off. Miro's wrestled, it feels like a handful of times in 2 years. Also, why does Tony hold out for AEW or WWE stars when Megan Bain should be signed to a huge deal? Well, I mean, I don't know about a huge deal. She's just getting national exposure, but she should be in AEW and she should be doing something. But I don't necessarily know that that's the method Tony's doing. They have let 15 people walk this year. Like they've consolidated quite a bit of that roster. Johnny says, hey, Sean and John, just out of curiosity, have AEW stopped using pyro for a reason? It's been 3 weeks now. Can't imagine it's a cost-cutting thing. Jimmy Jacobs used all of it, John. That was a great rib.
That's pretty funny. Listen, it could be a cost-cutting thing. It's not that AEW needs the cash or anything. Tony Khan is one of the richest men in the United States. The Khan family is loaded. But if there are areas that you can cut costs, I mean, WWE ditched pyro for 6-7 years, if not more than that.
I was there when they caught US Bank Arena on fire.
Yeah. So
they cut it out after that.
So I don't think it's implausible that it's part of some cutbacks. I also think, you and I have kind of talked about this off air, but I also think it wouldn't be all that surprising to see AEW change how it structures some contracts, that it brings people on and making it more per date oriented rather than full guarantees for an entire year.
I think that makes an awful lot of sense. Guys, reminder, get in your super chats. Get in your humper chats. Chad says, Jen Pepperman said, today is a good day yesterday on Twitter. Anything to read into? Not that I know of.
Maybe she was having a nice Tuesday.
Maybe she's having a good Tuesday. She left WWE before she got murdered backstage.
That's true. She avoided getting a bullet in the brain, so that's good.
There you go.
Can you believe? Wait, I'm sorry to cut you off. Can you believe there are people on social media who are like, don't be ridiculous in saying that they looked like they were murdered.
They do look like they were murdered.
Chad Gable had like a bullet wound in his head. There was a guy that had blood splattered behind his head on the wall. I quote tweeted it with the do you want to hear another joke, Murray? Like from Joker? Like, I mean, my goodness, like that was the clear insinuation.
It certainly was an insinuation. And I'm going to insinuate you guys can make money using BetOnline. Whoa! You can bet on wrestling? Yeah, you can at BetOnline AG. We've given you a bunch of underdog picks over at Fightful since we started to work with BetOnline AG. But well before they were a partner, that's where we got our odds from for years. Whether it be major shows or your Continental Classics and other things like that, they always have a bunch of interesting odds for you over at BetOnline AG. But it's not just that. Payouts in minutes, high credit card acceptance, a safe and secure environment, and they've been trusted for over 25 years. They got the earliest lines, the fastest payouts, and the ability to bet on wrestling. How cool is that? If you think you know so much about this, go put your money down. Go do it. Show the world. Please bet responsibly and only bet what you can. BetOnline AG.
You want to see something funny, Sean? That I just
Sure.
unpacked?
Sure.
This is me as a Muppet.
Oh,
cool
well, yeah, I mean, you're always a Muppet.
But it's got like the hair accurate and everything.
Yeah, I guess.
Pretty cool.
Yeah, I guess. You could. That's, I guess, a way you could describe it. By the way, guys, Chad Gable, or actually Sami Zayn and Damian Priest were both underdogs in the BetOnline AG odds. You could have made a little money on that. A reminder, get in those super chats, get in those humper chats. You can do that at humperchats.com. Jonathan Corona has a question that he poses to me, but I think is better suited for you. Do you think we will ever see Matt and Jeff go back to WWE? In your opinion, how do you guys rate the new family? Did you like the horror scene? What did you think of their debut? I do think there needs to be an explanation of the ghastly scene, but it's been reiterated to me it's not to be supernatural. But Jon Alba hosts the Extreme Life with Matt Hardy. What do you think about them going back to WWE?
I think there is probably a greater than 70% chance that you see them on WWE TV in some form in the next few months. Whether that means they are signed to WWE, I don't know. But obviously, we know about the existing NXT and TNA partnership. They're not signed anywhere right now. They're working for TNA on a per day basis, pardon me. And I totally could see some collaboration on that end. I've mentioned this to you off camera. I think that NXT right now would be the perfect spot for the Hardys, where there are a lot of people who could learn a lot of things from working with Matt and Jeff. They could go out there and work their sports entertainment style match and go out there and still have a good one. And with NXT moving to CW, having some name brand value on your show wouldn't hurt by any stretch of the imagination. But I also think that there would probably be some main roster aspirations. I do know more than anything, they're really enjoying being in TNA right now, Matt especially. The Impact number was up pretty big this past week doing the compound segment. The pay-per-view did good numbers from what they're led to believe. The attendance was good for it. Matt signed for 300 fans after the main event with Moose. And that's after risking having to sleep on the couch after spearing Rebby through a table. So, by the way, how old are you, Sean?
Oh my God. So who in the Wyatt Sicks had the Glock?
Interesting.
I would say the Buzzard had it.
Yeah, that's probably Dexter Loomis.
What's going on with Wardlow? Would love to see him in 2 years in a program with Braun. I mean, he was on TV recently. I know he's not getting pushed to the level where some people thought, but I mean, like, I don't know if they believe that he is that guy for that type of thing. He hasn't wrestled in a long time, but he's appeared on TV. Sean and John, in your guys' opinion, do you think this is the best thing that ever happened in WWE? Endeavor buying WWE and UFC to merge them? No, but
the best thing that happened was Vince McMahon
leaving by all means, and Kevin Dunn leaving as well. Like the creative stagnation involved was just baffling. Mr. Acosta says Drew and Punk don't need the title, even without them not having a match, barely getting physical with each other. This feud has been near perfect. They could main event a PLE tomorrow, and it would make sense. I agree with that. I don't think they need the title. I don't think it would make sense for Punk to be anywhere near the title right now, because unless he won Money in the Bank, and I don't see that happening, it just wouldn't make sense.
Do you think the plan was for Punk to win the title at WrestleMania?
No, I don't. But Hub City News says, what percent would you say Dijak stays with WWE? I'm going to say 60%, but they need to get to make that deal.
Yeah, I'll tell you, man.
The wire.
I'm really curious what his ceiling in WWE is, because when I used to see him on the New England Indies all the time, I was just blown away by how talented he was. And I thought his finish was one of the most unique finishers in wrestling at the time. He had great presence.
Yeah.
And we just haven't seen him reach that full potential. And you wonder, because he kind of checks off all the boxes that someone like Paul Levesque would look for in a main player. He looks like a Bond villain. Like, he's awesome.
Yes, he does.
So I'm curious as to what the situation is there. Maybe they're just holding off on putting him on TV until they know what his contract situation looks like, and then they go from there.
Adrian Carpenter, where are AEW and WBD in media negotiations? Will the talk of WBD matching Amazon's NBA offers and possibly taking the NBA to court slow talks down? No, not the court aspect. They're going to get their deal done. They'll get it done this year. They have had ongoing talks for over a year about this, but I would imagine that we have a deal announced within the next few months.
I have heard, and I feel comfortable in saying this publicly, I have heard from multiple people at WBD that the part of the business that AEW is considered in is different than most of the sports properties. So budgetarily, I don't think there's that much of a correlation between them.
Yeah. Joker says, I dig the spookiness and murder stuff, but I thought the vast majority of the masks were silly and overdone. Can't believe they killed anyone with 200 pounds of obstructive plastic on their faces. Suspension of disbelief, I guess, but I understand why some people don't want to suspend their disbelief on that one, because they don't necessarily, they're not, that's not their kind of thing.
Who says they didn't put the masks on after they killed them?
That's a good
Hide
point.
their identity.
Cadillac Carson says, starting to believe Alpha Academy killed Gable and they just framed Uncle Howdy and his crew. I saw a picture of Homelander that said, Otis, realizing that everyone thinks that the Wyatts killed Chad Gable, and in parentheses, he shot him right before. Thomas says, what happened to the Okada title eliminator match for tonight? Was Shota the plan before he got injured? Well, Shota did unfortunately get injured. I'll work to find out what's up with that. But I mean, we see this across WWE, AEW, everything. We saw it with Saraya and Mariah May. We saw it with Karrion Kross and Xavier Woods. We saw it with Apollo and Garza. Stuff just changes. Any reason why Samantha wasn't at Raw Monday? I was told she still has time on her deal, but what that means, I don't know. Because when Cody Rhodes left WWE back in the day, Brandy left right after. So, and she had time on her deal too. Any updates on Becky and Natalya? Unsigned. I don't know what's more disappointing. SRS eating well-done steak or Serena being left off Dynamite 3 miles from her home. Still a meaty show. Although he did have a typo and it says 3 mics from her home. Now listen, if she was only 3 mics away, even if it were Michael Jordan at 6'6", egregious. 20 feet from her home and she's left off the show meet Normus. Well, we would say that is not well done. Ian
Are you
says,
wearing a Doja Cat t-shirt?
yeah, of course I am. Don't be ridiculous. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I could tell you a few interesting facts about Doja Cat and the number of number one singles that she's had in comparison to Bruce Springsteen, if you'd like. Let's see here.
Well,
what are you
if you
doing?
need any help?
Looking for your Bruce Springsteen clone of Willie?
I've got all the songs, the story behind every single Bruce Springsteen song. So maybe when I send you to the gallows for eating well done steak, this will be your capital punishment. Me reading every single one of these to you.
Let's take a look. Okay, she hit number one with Say So. That was a good one. Paint the Town Red this year, number one as well. So that's 2 number one hits.
Genesis and lyrics of the song Bobby Jean. The narrator visits Bobby Jean, who has left the city some time ago, causing his memories to come back to him with a hint of nostalgia. You hung with me when all the others turned away, turned up their nose. We like the same music. We like the same bands.
Listen, we don't sell sleep aids on this show, so we'll just skip that. Could you see a Survivor Series type match between TNA and NXT in the future? Yeah, I could. I think they should do one. I think they should definitely do a TNA NXT type of thing, and it comes down to one sole survivor. Everybody gets some wins. Money in the Bank predictions. Jay, he's on the poster, and Tiffany Stratton are my guesses. Those are my guesses as well. Although, listen, Jey Uso is over. I don't know if he's peaked in ring or as far as that goes, but Tiffany seems like a slam dunk. Who do you got?
Tiffany certainly seems like a slam dunk. I could absolutely see her winning. On the men's side, Jay probably is the most logical, but I'll tell you, Sean, and it's highly unlikely, but would not hate seeing someone like Bronson Reed win Money in the Bank.
Okay.
Would not hate seeing that. I think that Bronson Reed checks off all the boxes for someone his size. He's a fantastic athlete. He's not a bad promo either. And he's a believable killer. And we've never seen someone like him win Money in the Bank. Like
I'd like to see him talk more in his own voice than the slow, methodical big man voice that they have him do.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, he's such a charismatic guy.
He really is. He really is.
I Make Beats says, hi, guys. Just want to say the Wyatt Sicks debut was awesome. I love horror, masks, and wrestling. This was great. Where is Dijak? He's on a show called WWE Speed this week, facing Xavier Woods. He says, I miss him yelling, feast your eyes. I could easily see him in the IC scene along with Elia, especially if Braun wins. Thoughts? Yes, I could as well. I could also see him succeeding on the indies if he goes that route. But I think that John mentioned this a little bit earlier. He's very unique, and he is this big dude with a lot of unique charisma as well, especially from a social media perspective. He knows how to get buzz and get people to cheer for him and get people invested in him in that regard. Plus, he can kill it in the ring. Bad Wrong says, do you think they'll do something with the custody of Dominic Mysterio match that's been going around for SummerSlam?
That'd be fun.
I mean, it would be great if Rhea won and then Dominic is like, I'm not your property type of thing.
Do you think they could shark cage Dom?
For sure.
Yeah.
Sure. We got several more super chats and humper chats. Go ahead and get them in as we are heading down the home stretch. Will says, have you heard if Julia is still the plan for Heat Wave? Because it feels like Lola might have the match with Roxanne. Well, considering that injury, I don't know if that is still the plan, but it was, according to Corey Brennan. But that can change a lot of things. Ooh, Hub City News says needs an Alba versus Van Vliet best hair in the business match in 2024. What percentage would you say that Dijak stays? Somebody else asked this. I'm going to say 60, but they want a match, John.
So I don't even know if you know this. I think you know this. There was talks in 2020, 2021 of Chris Van Vliet and I doing a match on the Indies.
Ooh,
we talked about it. We had like a general agreement to do it, and some things happened with the promotion that was going to host it, and unfortunately, it never came to be. I mean, I was going to manage you in Tampa for the initial WrestleMania that was going to happen.
I'm so glad. I hate that the pandemic happened. I am so glad that show didn't happen.
Yeah.
One day I will expand on that story, but listen, you can't find anything of me in the ring right now that looks like really real. Like as far as a move goes that I really screw up. something horrible would have happened in that match because the guy that I was working with was real bad. I worked with an untrained guy a couple months ago, and he may have torn my meniscus. So don't get in the ring if you're not trained. Derek says, I'm sure there had to be some injury time added. What is Sheamus's contract status? Is New Day still expiring at the end of the year? I saw people say matter-of-factly that New Day was expiring at the end of the year, and I had to reach out and say, hey, we don't know that yet. I'm working on one of them, but we'll see. Sheamus's deal was supposed to be up in the earlier part of this year. He missed 8 months, so they might have him through the fall, into the year. I don't have anything definitive on that.
I could see him leaving.
I could too. I could see him joining BCC, honestly.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Joel Wood says, I hope Camille doesn't end up like Megan Bain, who just stays under contract but isn't used until she's not. Well, a little bit of different there. I think Megan Bain was on a tiered deal, and she was sent over to Stardom. But Joel Wood says after Ricochet, who's the next person you see going from WWE to AEW and vice versa.
I mean, I could definitely see Sheamus, and I'll tell you what, how badly, you mentioned Blackpool, how badly could that tag division use a reunion at the bar? Like in AEW. I mean, that would be so fantastic for that tag division. Vice versa, probably for me, I think it's probably between Ricky Starks, Daniel Garcia. I don't know. When's Wardlow up?
I don't know.
Okay. If Wardlow were to be up in the coming year, I could definitely see him too.
Jonathan Corona says, do you think we'll see a PLE or show together with WWE and AAA? No, I don't.
No.
Do you think, who do you guys want to see wrestle? I just don't think that's going to be a possibility. I don't think they're going to do that, Jonathan. I don't. And he says, wanted to say what's up, wanted to say hi before I go to Mexico for 3 parties. This guy sent us pictures of him getting absolutely blackout drunk. And we ran them on the air.
Enjoy.
Unreal. Rachel says, do you have any insight as to why none of the women's roster are trying to go off or go after the women's world title? With Rhea out of the picture, it seems like it should be an easy target. Yeah, I would like to see more than that, other than, like, here's Zelina, who never wins, being put into a title match, it seems like, or program. She's fine. She does okay. But, like, what are we... Like, give these people wins and build up contenders.
And that's how Becky got over in the first place years ago, right? Yep. She just won a bunch of matches, and all of a sudden people were like, hey, we really like this girl. And then when they tried to turn her heel, they're like, no, we like her. We want her to win. I did enjoy, Sean, the backstage shot of all the NXT women looking at the North American Championship. I thought that was really unique, and more stuff like that's good.
Is Hook's contract still up this summer? I asked about it and got no sold on that, so I don't know about that. Denise easily gets muted, but Alba starts reading Springsteen lyrics and nothing happens. I love it. I did mute him. What are your awesome Survivor Series 90 team names? Team Inner Thigh, for sure. What about you, John? Born in the USA, in parentheses, residing in Canada.
Well, the U.S. Express used to use Born in the USA until they realized that you got to pay licensing fees on that. That was the end of that. And
that it might not mean exactly what they believed it meant.
Yeah, that too.
Catchy hook, though.
Well, I'm a believer. Let me get a quick tangent here. I'm a believer that Born in the USA is actually a very patriotic song.
Sure.
Because I think Born in the USA makes you challenge the wrongs of your country and want to do right by others. And I think there's nothing more American than that. But Vince McMahon apparently didn't agree. So
we've got a few more. Bobby White says, if they stop at the learning tree for Alex Palowski's sanity, the Acclaimed in some of these filler matches and put on Wardlow, Kip Sabian, Bang Bang Gang, definitely more women's matches I think it'd make for great TV. Well, I don't think that Jericho's playing for Dynamite. I think he's going to be on Collision this week. I definitely want to see more Kip Sabian. I did a scrum with him at Double or Nothing 5 years ago, and he was really charismatic then. So, yes, I agree. I think we should see more Starks and maybe, I wouldn't mind seeing more Bang Bang Gang, but I think the Trios program hurt them too. I think Jay White went from that MJF program to the Trios thing, and people were just like,
My Kip Sabian story is that about 5 years ago, he tweeted something along the lines of, Does anyone have any good places to play tennis in Orlando? And then he DM'd me asking if I knew any good places to play tennis in Orlando.
Did you?
No, not really.
Oh, okay. You played pickleball yet?
I'm actually starting to do work for a pickleball outlet, doing content creation for a pickleball outlet. So
it's white hot right now, man.
It is massively hot.
What do you think about this one? Fogarty greater than Springsteen?
Bruce Springsteen likes John Fogerty a lot. He's covered a lot of John Fogerty songs. So
okay. We've got Patrick saying, how are monetary amounts decided for wrestler contracts? For instance, if AEW makes Ricochet an offer, how do they make sure it's the same or more than what he was making before? Ricochet's agent will talk to AEW and they will negotiate back and forth and they will hammer out a deal.
And that's the thing too, Sean, right now where we're seeing more than ever, more talent are becoming represented by agents and talent representatives. I mean, that is something that has changed in the last 3 years or so, where coming out of the pandemic, a lot of these talent are looking out for themselves now. And that's a good thing. That's certainly a good thing.
We've got Love for Boost saying Priest is lucky he didn't get injured. The way he got yanked reminded me of Kenny's V-trigger through the cage. Both are hard to watch with no injury. Yeah, he's very, very lucky, but he ended up okay and is now scheduled for WWE Money in the Bank. Yeah. Look, somebody says, I refuse to believe y'all ride and die for Kip Sabian like this.
I mean, I think
he's good.
I didn't make any comments about Kip Sabian, the wrestler. I said he asked where to play tennis.
I'm not sure what extended amount of work that he would have seen to give him an opinion one way or another in AEW. Which McDonald's wrestler would be the best, or McDonald's character would be the best wrestler? My vote is Grimace.
So are you following what's been going on with Grimace right now?
No,
this is a big deal. So Grimace threw out the first pitch at the Mets game last week.
Okay.
And it was like kind of a good first pitch. Like it wasn't bad. He was wearing a Mets hat and everything. And the Mets are 7-0 since Grimace threw out the first pitch, and now they're a half game back in the playoffs. So we are in the Grimace era. And at first, it's funny, over on SNY, they were kind of like, try not to talk too much about Grimace just because, sponsorships, so you never know. And now it's like, lean in, like let it in. Grimace is our new overlord. Embrace him. And I'm all about that. I think it's great.
Listen, I would have a trio of McDonald's characters. First off, Officer Big Mac, an OG, but he would sort of be the muscle. He'd be the guy sitting back there with his baton, because Ronald McDonald and the Hamburglar as a tag team, give me Doink and Repo Man as a tag team, and I would enjoy it.
Meanwhile, it's revealed that it's actually the long gone and hidden Mayor McCheese that's pulling all the strings and is behind it. Do you know the story about Mayor McCheese and like what happened to him?
To be topical here, we just wrote storylines that are better than 80% of Vince Russo's.
Mayor McCheese, they had to stop using him because there was a lawsuit that alleged they ripped him off the characters from HR Puffin stuff.
Oh my gosh.
And they did. So that's why Mayor McCheese disappeared into the void.
One of my friends was, back when the potato phones existed, we had to use an actual camcorder. We did a Hamburglar prank. We had plants at the window. Like it was our friends getting their food, and the Hamburglar ran through and took it. The clip went viral back in the day.
Very nice.
Mr. Acosta says, what's worst, Def Rebel themes or AEW merch? Def Rebel themes.
Not even close.
Listen, Def Rebel themes sound like they were made with AI.
They really do.
Yes. This is the anniversary of Vince Russo beating Ric Flair on WCW TV.
Do you know what else happened on that show?
No, I don't.
Eric Bischoff beat Terry Funk for the Hard Championship.
I remember that. I remember I did a show with Vince and I brought that up once. Guys, please leave a thumbs up. Please subscribe to FightfulSelect.com. Oh, hey, look at our friend Lucas here, who represented Post Wrestling at the recent Clash at the Castle. He's only heard one Bruce Springsteen. I mean, he's from overseas, so it's understandable.
Bruce has a huge overseas audience. That's interesting.
Not as much as Doja Cat. Anyway, leave a thumbs up. Please subscribe to FightfulSelect.com. We have news over there right now on Switchblade Jay White, on Buddy Matthews, on a lot of things. Brooks Jensen, NXT, Joe Hendry, all kinds of stuff over there. Jon Alba, where can they find you?
Well, you can find me wrestling-wise. I always encourage you guys, check out wrestlingaccordingtoalba.com. It's a really unique wrestling Patreon. It's much different than Fightful Select, and I think that's cool. We do tape studies every single week where we break down matches that either happened recently or they're famous matches, and we really get into the why of each move and how things happen. We do a lot of fun stuff and have a great Discord over there, much like Sean. There's a lot of actually crossover between Fightful Select subscribers in there. So head on over wrestlingaccordingtoalba.com, and of course the Extreme Life of Matt Hardy, which drops every single Friday. You can catch me on SNY, the TV home of the New York Mets in New York City, and yeah, a whole bunch of other things. So yeah, it was fun, Sean. Thanks for having me.
Of course. And Enrique wraps us up by saying AEW should make the Owen Cup for the Continental Classic in the same format as a FIFA Cup, with a group stage and direct elimination. I think it's good that they have various tournaments. Like, if they're going to do a bunch of tournaments, have them with varying things. And I don't think, or the Continental Classic, he says. Yeah, I could see the Continental Classic changing formats for sure, but I think they love having their round robin format and all that. But guys, thank you all so much. This has been a great success. Until next time, guys, we're out.